Well, thanks for coming out to be with us here on Sunday afternoon. The weather's looking pretty nice, so maybe we'll get out of here in time to enjoy some of the sunshine. It's entirely appropriate that I'm speaking for the first time publicly about my experiences at a Hempology 101 event. Hempology played such an important role in my knowledge and understanding of what was happening to my own family. The first events that I attended that were marijuana related were Hempology conventions, where I was able to see many interesting and inspirational speakers, including Chris Bennett, Mark Emery, and of course Michelle Rainey. It's really humbling and really an honor, actually, to be able to speak here today. I first came in contact with Ted probably about 4 years ago now, on the internet. In fact, probably most of you here I have met in one form or another, under one name or another on the internet. My work was limited to hiding behind a screen and a name. I was raised in southern Alberta, as you know, the most politically and socially conservative areas of Canada. And I cut my political teeth on Alberta Report. I remember chanting and cheering when Preston Manning said the West wants in. My school yearbook states my life's ambition to be a Christian missionary. You know, my conservative roots are really deep. In fact, the last time I spoke publicly, the people sat in the pews. I was a prohibitionist. I took what I was told as fact. I believed in the message wholeheartedly, and I conducted myself in that way. I was the little sister that flushed the stash down the toilet. That's where I learned to run. I was the prayer warrior, in fact, that gathered other prayer warriors together to pray for Mark Emery when he rolled through town with his Freedom Tour in '94.
You never admitted that to me.
There's a lot of things I haven't admitted. I lived in a bubble. It was a bubble that I made myself. Anybody who thought differently than me, I kept as far away from me as possible. The people that I knew that thought the same as me, I brought closer. And then everything changed. My life's journey brought me to BC. It didn't take long for me to realize that most of the friends that I had been making were actually smoking cannabis. I became aware that they didn't behave inappropriately as I had been told as a child. In fact, they behaved far better than most people I know behave after a couple drinks. Even with that awareness that I had been lied to, it still wasn't enough for me to really dig much deeper. It took a couple more years. In 2003, when my partner and I decided to move out to the country to live out a simple life's dream of being self-sustainable and living from our home, working from our home, and raising our kids and enjoying our life. Shortly after we moved, less than a month in fact, my husband re-injured his back. Years before, he had fallen 3 stories and shattered both of his heels and injured his back in a fall. And he had struggled with that pain for years, but he managed it however he did. But this time, in performing the duties that are required to maintain land, he threw out his back badly, and he wasn't actually able to walk. For over a year, I would guess, he was laying on his back, not able to take more than 6 or 7 steps at a time before he had to lay back down. And we did take him to the doctor, and every time we went to the doctor gave us more pills. and more pills, and higher doses, and different pills. They put needles into his back with cortisone treatments that we later found out would deteriorate the cartilage in his spine. And living with somebody who's on these medications, raising children and trying to run a farm with somebody who's on his medications. Well, it was pretty much like living with a ghost. We had known that cannabis helped his pain, but being good parents, we didn't indulge in that too often. But as the situation deteriorated and Bill's reluctance to go on more and more medication became apparent, we started to try alternative methods. I'm pretty straight. The first time that I went out to buy cannabis, it was actually a connection I made on Craigslist. The internet has played such a fundamental role in our experience. Just scroll works, there we go. It played such a fundamental role in our understanding, in our knowledge. It really wasn't until I was able to access the internet and access all of the vast information that's available out there about the science and really learn about hundreds of other people's experiences that I really became convinced that cannabis does help. It was a lot like being Alice, considering my history. I had fallen down into this world that I didn't even know was there, and it was existing right in front of my face. The world, everything was backwards. Yes is no, up is down, and right is wrong. As I journeyed through Weederland, I had become aware of how much of what I was told was deception. They told me that pot would make a person do bad things, and as we all know, because we're here, that's not true. They told me that pot would damage a person's brain using studies that have long since been debunked. They told me it would make a person crazy or cause schizophrenia, yet statistics for schizophrenia have remained consistent throughout the highs and lows of cannabis consumption. They tell us that it's a gateway drug and that it leads to more harmful things like meth and heroin, but we know that it's a tool of harm reduction for these very addictions, and it's even less harmful choice for the legal substances like alcohol and tobacco. The deception of prohibition is so insidious it draws you in. The very first lie I ever told my eldest son was about cannabis. He knew I lied when I did it. Kids have a way of keying in on things like that. My eldest and I were pretty tight, and it was the first time that I had deceived him. It changed our relationship, and it changed how we talked to each other. We all feel compelled to lie and hide and disengage ourselves from society to protect our families and ourselves from the archaic laws of our country. Using fear, the governments have manipulated our personal relationships. They've alienated us from each other, from our families, from our spouses and our children. Families are paying the ultimate price every day. Ultimatums are handed down by loved ones, and trusted information is used in family courts by vindictive spouses and well-meaning members of the trusted inner circle. Families are physically torn apart when members are put into jail. For me, one of the most striking stories that I've seen in the last 10 years that I've been paying attention was the case of Patricia Spotted Crow. I identified with her. She was a woman that was put in a position where she had no choice. Her poverty had her selling cannabis, and ultimately it was the $30 sale that landed her